wait a little longer for the late people to come. So we're very excited that this is our second free panel that we're hosting here at 7. We're delighted with the response of the panels we've received this year. 7th feels it's a really important thing to address the crucial chasm between graduating and studying artistic practices and the professional arena in both the commercial and non-commercial realm. We hope tonight that this interface of professionals with the community can provide some insight into how to approach your practice to suit your intended outcomes or goals in your journey as an artist or a professional. Tonight we'll be discussing a series of topics, and then there'll be an opportunity to ask questions of the panellists in the Q&A. So I'd like to introduce the panellists. John Butt is the director of C3 here and also the original founder of 7th, so we're very happy to have him here with us tonight. Melanie Capel is the assistant director at Flinders Lane Gallery in the city, and Scott Livesey also joins us, the director of Scott Livesey Galleries. So we're going to jump right into it because we want to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions of us also. So I'll ask the first question of you, Scott. How should an artist or collective bio be approached?
I think really the best first point is probably very smart, quick email with images, CV. It's very hard, the commercial realities of a gallery like mine and a lot of smaller galleries where there's maybe 2 or 3 of us there. You might get, depending on what's going on, you might get 12 approaches in a week, and it's very hard to write to everyone. And it's also very hard to climb into someone's work, when you've got shows on, and not only do you have, say, the 18 artists you're looking after, but you've got, obviously, hopefully, an army of clients and purchasers, be it architects, collectors, etc., etc. So I think gently is the best way. Very politely, very gently, not to push. It's, some people get very upset if they send a huge parcel in and you can't get through it, and it might not be your bag, or it's just not your client. It's not your client base. I mean, I've been doing this for 17 years, and I came from a Sotheby's background where I was an art auctioneer, so for better or worse, we sort of know our client base, we know it is a commercial gallery, and we know the sort of areas that our collectors or followers, the areas they pursue. Within any stable, you'll find there's probably 2 or 3 artists that you'll call your current stars, or the ones that are very, very viable, and that allows you to have 2 or 3 artists that you totally rate and believe in, even if they're not commercial, hoping that down the track, and I've seen it happen, some of the lowliest commercially then end up carrying the other 18. But I think the approach just has to be very gentle. Follow up in 2 weeks if you haven't heard, but certainly not hammer. And I know that it's hard to know where to start, but you find often a letter addressed to you personally is much better. It could be an email. I mean, it's usually emails these days. Rather, you get from to whom it may concern, and that's a definite no. But from graduation shows, you'll find us gallerists, dealers, which we are, we tend to scout around. It tends to be word of mouth. If there's work there that we want to pursue, we tend to find it. It's usually through recommendation. But for God's sake, you've got to try and get your work out there. It's very, very important.
Yeah. And you, Melanie, what do you think on that topic?
Approaching galleries. Yeah. I certainly agree with Scott. I know at Flinders Lane we get so many people sending in applications, and a lot of the time it's really fantastic work, but we've only got a certain amount of walls and a certain amount of possibilities to show artists. So it does mean that if your work is fantastic, then that's great, and it might go in a pile that we consider for a group show, or we have an emerging artist show as well that we put on once a year. But otherwise it's just not always possible to write back. But in saying that, it's also important, I guess, not to be disheartened, because the only way that you get on our radar sometimes is by sending those emails. I think I'd certainly agree with Scott to say don't hammer. It gets really frustrating when someone rings up a day after they've sent an email and you haven't even been able to look at it yet. And it's, yeah, it doesn't, it doesn't ever look very good.
It's always nice to get someone that, you know, it's been a no, but just, this is my show, that
Yeah, that's
something
true.
like that, just
Yeah.
keeping you,
In the loop.
you know, and,
Yeah.
you know, I must say occasionally you do pick up one of those people, you think, oh shit, that's turned a corner, or, you know,
Yeah.
that's, I can work with that, and you turn up at the show, and so,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, that's been quite nice actually. It's nice to sort of see those artists and, you know, they're obviously really active in their practice and they do have shows around and start to drop in invites. And eventually we'll go, oh yeah, that's that really lovely girl that does this work. And just because we can't necessarily sign on and hold a show now, it's really nice having that on our radar too. And, yeah.
What do you think, John?
I mean, look, well, it's a bit different for us because we, as a non-profit, we have the, you know, the application process. We used to actually take applications all year round, but we get so many now, we've done 2 application rounds a year. All information is on our website, so we spend a lot of time explicitly outlining the things that you need to do to get to put a proper application. So even if you're not getting one to us, feel free to go to the website and have a look, because that's pretty good information. But my thing is that you need to, I'm a practicing artist as well as a gallerist within the years, you've got to research who you're hassling and what galleries you're going to, because I mean we get maybe a few hundred, 300 applications every round, and out of those maybe half of them are not appropriate to our curatorial vision. So it's sort of what we see is that these artists are going, oh, we'd like to show at that gallery, and they haven't really sort of looked through our catalogues and looked at our curatorial vision, which is kind of hard to articulate anyway, because you also want to see new work. But I think researching who you're going to, why you're going to, do they show work which is similar to yours, or they're sympathetic to your kind of practices? I mean, they're really important, because I think in these guys that say that you probably get a lot of applications from people who you probably would never show their work, not because it's good or bad, but because it's not your curatorial vision. So I think researching and kind of understanding what your practice does and how it might fit or dovetail into another gallery is quite key. And then, then it takes years to develop relationships. And some graduates are lucky and they get picked up really quickly. And at the grad shows, some it takes like 5-10 years to develop a relationship. I think if you're doing an art practice, your art practice is about your vocation rather than, I suppose financial. Financial, remuneration. So it's really about planning it for you and what you want. So you really got to sort of look at your strategies, look at the kind of practice you have, and then really try and make relationships with galleries who you think might be sympathetic to your practice. That's really important.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think even in my experience in the commercial world, it's often the answer is the stable is full, and the stable is usually always full, but if the artist is appropriate for the gallery and what they show and their client base, then there may be room for leniency. So I think that's the best thing, to try and find the gallery that you feel best represents the type of work that you're doing, because the likelihood is that they have the client or they have the curatorial vision already there to be able to support your practice in the best way possible. So that's a definite big one, I think.
I think it's key to remember, I was saying to these guys, that every year you'll get maybe 300 graduates or more out of all the 3 major institutions, and that's not even counting the non-art, the people who don't go to the art school and show.
Yeah.
So you've got 200 or 500 graduates coming every year, and you've got all these commercial galleries or artist-run spaces or whatever, and there's just not that many opportunities. So it's more
and
about...
the galleries have halved really in the last 10 years too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I'm not saying this to make you feel sad about your practice. It's more about the realities of it and seeing what can you do to really sort of negotiate that terrain, because it is difficult.
That's actually something that we bring up that you just mentioned is very important, obviously, to, I guess, be smart about the way that you approach it. One thing in regards to suitability for galleries, we get quite a few people that email through and say, oh my goodness, I've been told that my work is very much like this artist, will you sign me on? And we kind of go, well, why would we have 2 artists that are exactly the same? That doesn't really make sense. So if you go through and go, okay, this is the gallery stable, this is, I'm probably, they've got a lot of landscape or they've got a lot of figurative work. But if you find a gallery where maybe you could complement a few of their artists and they don't necessarily have something that's exactly like yours, that's probably the best way to go, as opposed to wasting your time on the other part of galleries that might not be the right fit.
Yeah, that's true. We'll keep moving. So, in a very topical sense. So, I'll pass this one to you, John. What's the best way to tackle a CV?
I laughed when I got this question because for me, CVs, I don't put much importance into CVs. I think it's your work always talks. If you put an application in, for us it's different. But we kept getting people asking, bringing us up really anxious, going, we don't see, do we have to put a CV in with the application? And we just got tired of people getting nervous about it, so we didn't want them to feel it. So we put it in, but I think, it's a good way to, a CV is a good thing to educate someone. Like if I'm looking at your application and maybe that we're interested in the work but we can't get a full picture of your practice, or we're just not, because we get some applications that end up being incredible shows, but the applications are pretty bad, or the images don't really show what we're doing. So we'll often jump on the web and look on the web, and we'll often look at their CV and go, oh, they've shown at these galleries that have a high standard of curatorial practice, so maybe we should revisit that. So CVs are important in some respect. I would just say keep it super simple, have a selection, actually write some notes, which I don't normally do. So you should have 3 or 4 versions of your CV on hand and on the computer at any given time, because people will ring up and ask you for different things. You should have a short bio of 2 sentences. It's like, jump up makes work about space or whatever. And then you have a longer 2-paragraph bio that might say, I make work about space and I've studied these places and I've shown at these places. And they're really important. Then you should have maybe a 1 or 2 pager, because most applications will say keep your CV to a minimum, and then have a full one. I mean, my full CV is 5 pages long in 9 point. It's stupid, and it doesn't really do anything for anyone. So I think suggest that you take out. I mean, if you're giving, say, a CV to one of these guys, perhaps you might want to look at your exhibitions that you've done that might be of interest to them. I mean, you can't, I think as your comment just then, you can't really second guess what people are looking, but it's good to kind of maybe cherry pick your CV a bit and tailor them for who you're giving it to. So don't put everything, and don't put you worked in a coffee bar or in my place.
Yeah.
Because it just takes up room, you miss it. And I think the best CVs we get is it's like a very small, very, very light one thing with just, a few lines, or maybe like, a page, which just has a really amazing shows. And then I asked it to CVs that they might have shown 100 exhibitions, but they only put 7 exhibitions on the CV. Because you try to send a message to someone.
Yeah. And Mel, that's certainly something that we've discussed as well, keeping them organised and short and to the point.
Yeah, organised, short to the point, and give us dates, give us locations, tell us the name of the show, if it was curated by someone in particular, because they're all things that when you're going through, the worst thing is looking at a CV and going, oh, all of them are great, but I don't know if you did them over a 10-year period or in the last year. But yeah, it's definitely clear and concise, and just, be proud about what you've been doing with your work and put it forward, I think. Yeah.
Artist statements are very important.
Yes, that's
artist
true.
statements very important.
But clear as well. I think we talk to a lot of people about art statements and bios and the language you should be using. And I think in art school there's a lot of pressure to write academically about your work, and that's okay for some things. But if I'm looking at 300 applications in a day with a team, we don't want to read a big tract. It's really dense, because we're just like, oh, come on, hurry up. You sort of keep it clear and concise and very plain language, I think is really cool.
And that's certainly true for when the bios come from the artist's hand to the commercial galleries, and I know from my experience that the bios stay relatively the same, they're not changed too much in terms of what the actual content, so the clearer and for your audiences in the commercial world is better, and would that be right?
Yeah, and really, again, it's the images that are really paramount. It's either going to catch your eye, or it's not. Or the approach, whether it's very polite and humble, and that something out of the ordinary instead of being sort of hammered, but very simple artist statement. I paint bums, I'm obsessed with bums, or whatever, keep it simple.
Yeah.
No, I never got one of those either. That actually brings us to our next question for you, Mel. How do you document your work correctly in terms of image taking, and how to also send those to the galleries once you've taken them for their easy referencing?
This is a big one actually. When Soph and I were sort of collaborating about this session, as I said before, we've got an emerging artist show on at the moment, and wrangling 11 emerging artists with getting all the things that we need can be very painful, as much as I love them all. Images is a huge thing. It's basically with all the CV, the artist bio, your name, where you studied. If you don't have good images, then there's no point with all the rest of it.
Because the gallery has to maintain a standard, and if
Yeah.
the images are substandard, they can't go online. You can't present.
Clarity. So it sounds really silly, but taking a photo of your work on the wall that's the JPEG is labelled with your name, the title of the work, the dimensions, all of those things, so that when you are sending through something, you could say, these are my 5 paintings and list them, but if we then get a group of JPEGs, we don't know what painting is which, especially if we're getting group submissions, make sure that your name is there, the title of the paintings, all of those kind of things. Clarity is a big one. You'd be surprised how many images we get that are blurry, or the edges are cut off and we can't see the scale of the work, we can't really make out the medium. So I guess showing yourself off in the best way is the most important. Like I said, it sounds really silly and basic.
Also, on that point, also if you're presenting to a gallery, it often will help having, like obviously you have professional images, but initially someone next to a work of art or a sculpture
Yes, that's a
to,
good point.
to give the physicality. Otherwise it's a guessing game. It really
You
is.
don't know
Just
what you're looking
a
at.
professional shot isn't enough. Sometimes you might have to have someone next to it, or a chair or something, because physicality is very important. It's very hard to
I
gauge.
think when we document our shows, we'll always have, say if you put 8 images and you put 8 images in the application, you have 2 install shots and the rest can be details. Because you want to get not just the scale of the work, but if you're doing work which is conceptually driven as well, you want to have the relationships to architecture and scale and all those things in there too. That's really important.
Yeah. We had a great application recently actually where he did that. He listed all of his works, had all the details, had 3 different shots from installations from 3 different shows. We just had different ways that his work could be placed. And it allowed us to go, oh, okay, that could really work in our space in this sense. It was nice to have a big overview of how work can be in the space and how you can view it and interact with it. Yeah, it was a standout.
I think too, if you are having an exhibition, you're going to document it. I mean, I document I'm a photographic based artist, so I can take a reasonable photo you could. But if you're not confident, or if you're not really professional, I mean, invest in, there's plenty of artists, photographers from PCA and stuff who do cheap documentation. And I think it's pretty key to, if you're doing a really, investing all this time and money into a show and you're putting it there and it's in the gallery, you want to be able to show that. Most people see it online. I mean, you might get a few hundred people or 1,000 people coming to a gallery like this, but the rest of the people are going to be seeing it on your website or in the applications. And you know, it's an expense that sometimes is difficult to bear, but I would highly urge you to think about trying to get the work professionally documented. You know, people like Christo Cochran are great, and you know, some people will often. You know, you can also. I mean, in the early days I used to wangle and do deals and like swap artworks with the photographer. You know, I think that when we're seeing the image, and these guys are right, the image is everything. Like, it's about your work. It's not about what you say about your work in the end. It's about your work, and the image has to really, truthfully, and adequately show the work and its conceptual underpinning. So, I mean, it's obviously the artist statement's important, but we read artist statements and then look at the image and they go, well, there's nothing. There's no connect here. So making sure that your images are clearly articulating your practice is really important.
Yeah, and like you said, we as a team always strongly recommend that great shots of your works are taken during exhibitions because they're invaluable for future. And like Mel said, when you can see how work has worked in a room, it's a lot easier for us when we're doing applications at 7th to go, okay, that would work really well in this gallery space, or that would work really well in gallery 2, and then we really try and look to see how that is responsive to the architecture of our building. And I know that other artist-run spaces do the same thing, so it's really great to be able to get a better feel for the work as an image of itself and in some kind of context. So that's always something to bear in mind for both angles, I think, from Yeah.
That's something to add actually with this, that I don't think we've another thing is websites. And the importance of, when you're taking all those images, to actually build yourself a website, even if it's basic, and put them up there. Because when people do approach galleries, available to view at, it's fantastic. So that would be something I'd recommend too.
That was something I was going to really press upon as well with one of the other questions. I think, web presence these days, you should have a web presence. I mean, I feel uncomfortable saying that because I come from, a generation where we didn't always have such accessibility to images. So I feel like maybe if you want to go and be online, that's cool. But I think even if it's like you can have private sites, private accounts with passwords, you can do all that sort of stuff. But it's a really good way to, you can also, one of your questions is how do you break with the idea, like the sort of, the constraints or
Yeah, that was the, how do we challenge the conventions as we know them? It's the next question, as we know them. So what's some standout examples of working within and without out of these molds as well?
Well, that was going to lead into the whole thing about websites and, it's good. I think it's, we'll agree, I think, on that. Web presence is really important because we'll look at applications and the ones that we're interested in, sometimes they'll have two machines in the meeting and one's dedicated to just quickly looking at stuff on the web. So we'll look at everything that you got put online, not your Facebook obviously, but it's, it gives us an idea. I want to see a bigger practice, not just images. If we kind of go past the point of okay, we're interested in something, we want to see a strong sense of it. So having a website, there's plenty of DIY, like Squarespace is really, my web developer, I asked him, can you change my website? He said, I just go to Squarespace,
Yeah,
it's cheaper.
Squarespace is great.
And it's too busy to do it anymore, unfortunately. But you can do stuff like they host. I think it's like $20 a year or something ridiculous to host a site, and it's really easy to build. And I think breaking with convention is ways to have. If someone sent me a link with a little web thing, I went to a website that was conceptually interesting and had your images, not like tons of images, but anything I'd be quite interested in that. I think there's other ways. I mean, I just put an application into the Australia Council yesterday, and their support material is really a bit behind, even though they updated it recently, because it doesn't look we're doing website projects, and there's no room in there with support material thing for us to put actual online websites, which I thought was really weird, so I snuck in into pictures of articles. But some of those artists we're looking at will do a website which is a really basic thing, and it's almost like a show in itself. But I don't mean just like art online, like photos of install, but like they're making this thing a conceptual project as well, or just an idea. So you can be really creative with websites. I mean, the same thing with CVs, keep it really minimal. Don't put all your work on, don't do everything you did in 1998. I mean, just kind of, as an artist, my website only has 5 exhibitions on it at a time, because I think it's about the relevance to my practice. But even if it's Google Drive, you can go on Google Drive for free and put all your images on it and have password things, and that's a web presence.
Yeah, and we do the same. We do the same with that when we sit down for our applications. Here we always have, everyone's always got their computer, and we usually have hard copies, but we always look at the website links. And that is sometimes an important tool for us to be able to see further details about the works, or maybe it's a video for the night screen and there's other examples of videos that you can't necessarily fit into the parameters of the guidelines, but it doesn't mean we're not interested in seeing more. So if you've got only the limitation of 5 images and 1 video in what we ask for, if you've got a website link and we're interested, we'll go and explore further. So I think, it's a really invaluable presence, and for us it can make a big difference if we can see how your practice is multifaceted, or if you say it's indicative of style, and then we say, okay, well then here's a few other examples that will add to that idea of it being what the indication of style is going to, the outcome will be. So yeah, I think that's...
It's just one thing to say there. And I hope the artists aren't in this room tonight, but we had an application in the last round talking about breaking the tradition and people trying to do things that are a bit more interesting. And they did a video presentation of their application where there's 3 guys and they were like, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm going to do it. And it was really funny. And we loved it. But it totally distracted us from the application, and we didn't really... I thought good on them for trying to do something different, but in the end it became a foible because it it wasn't attractive to their work. Their work was images and sculpture, and this format had nothing to do with their practice. And it was also kind of the humour of it, really. So I think avoid gimmicks if you can. I think because that can be really distracting.
Yeah. And Mel, do you have anything to say on that breaking with convention? The idea of...
It's kind of tricky for us from a commercial perspective because the work that we show in the gallery has to be commercially viable. Like, artistic integrity is paramount, but at the end of the day, it does have to be commercially viable. So we do try to straddle the parameters of both, and there are certainly, similar to what Scott said before, there are certainly some artists that we sign on or that we invite into shows that we know might not sell in the commercial sphere, but we believe that they, deserve the airtime in the space and complement other works and things like that. So it's kind of hard to pin it down in that sense.
Yeah. We had an example, actually Heidi, and now I'm having a total mental blank of the artist that you sent me the thing as an example of breaking convention.
Oh, just Lou Hubbard's show at
Lou
TCB
Hubbard's show,
at the moment. For her understatement, she's written, it's a series of letters, communications between her and the subject of the show. So it wasn't Lou Hubbard practices in photography and sculpture, it was, "Dear Simon, thank you for your letter, blah, blah, blah." So that was an interesting example.
It was an example. So I think we were having this discussion in our board meeting before the panel about the way that there's different forums to be interested in breaking the conventional style too. So this is a thing where with the commercial world, it's a lot easier to be straight and simple, no gimmicks, and that way the time is an issue, whereas I suppose with artist-run spaces, we're slightly more open to those kinds of things, and not necessarily having bios or artist statements that are gimmicky, that are different in the application, but working through that process as something, as an exhibition outcome is really interesting, and that's something that you should think about, if you have upcoming shows of ways, and that is a really great, Lou Hubbard's artist statement at TCB is a really great example of that, so I recommend that you view that just as something as food for thought. So
Ty Snaith's just done she's doing some curating where she's writing short pieces of fiction, which are the artist statements.
Yeah.
Quite interesting, they're quite funny, they're quite, they're pretty meaty as well.
Yeah.
She's done one, which is like it's a total piece of fiction, and it's quite, it takes a bit of dig at the subjects.
Yeah.
Like that. But I think, that there is, it's not like you guys don't take risks, because you have to take risks.
Yeah.
It's about supporting artists, and commercial galleries, even though they have a viability, they're still passionate about it. And I think artist-run spaces, it's about risk. So, if you don't get it right with your CVs thing the first time, if your work's good, that's the important bit. We've had some atrocious applications with the worst CVs that I've seen, but they've had amazing shows.
Yeah.
So don't get too, just look at where you're going to, and then maybe really put the concentrated effort into why you're doing it and how you're doing it. That goes back to that researching the subject.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, research your subject. And you can also say the way that the galleries present their artists, and you can use that as ways of thinking about the way that you want to present yourself also. So for example, Flinders Lane always does what they call in situs, where the artwork is to scale on a wall. Maybe not everyone has the Photoshop skills to do that, but if you see that that's the standard, or that's what they're trying to create for their clients, then that's something they're going to be looking for also in the way that you're approaching them. So would you say that's fair?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely look around. In saying that too, it's nice for us to see a mix between, even though we are commercial, to see an adventurousness, but then also have that commercial. You might come with us with an incredible conceptual idea, but then say, I want to do this installation of this, this and this. And we love that, and then we can meet you halfway and make it work where it meets what we need as well out of it, and allows you to have that artistic creativity as well. We've had some shows that do that, even from artists that have been in our stable for years. They'll come together with a project and say, I want to show this, and we'll go, great, all right, let's do that here, and let's do some of your more familiar work over here, and make it work a little bit more collaboratively like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also listening to some things I've said, and also you guys, one thing to remember is that you really want to protect your own voice. So even though we're kind of saying, look at the other galleries and look at what they're looking at, I think curators want your voice. Your voice as a practitioner is the important thing. well, I think it's important to sort of be strategic about the structure and how you do it. And there's some norms that you need to go by. We want to hear from you, and you've got to really try and put your voice into your support material if you can.
And
Even though it's limited.
but also it's keeping it clear so we know what the message is. So that's really probably the biggest thing for us is we want to hear your voice, but it needs to be very clear so we can access it and we can go, okay, this is what it's about. So
Would you agree with that too, from a...
Yeah, largely. Why don't people ask us questions?
Yeah, we
So
can, yeah. Does anyone, we're about halfway through our questions, so if anyone has any questions at this stage.
I actually have one because you mentioned before that it's good to show photos that it's been in other shows and in situ, and so you get that sense of it. But is it sort of like a deterring factor in terms of application that if you show the same work and you're applying, you use like some maybe materials that you have in other shows, is that kind of like a deterring factor?
For us, not necessarily. It might mean that if we really love what you're doing, we'll say, well, what are you working on now? You know, if you've already shown that
You've
before.
got hero work, you've got
Yeah.
to present it.
And I think for us there is some, there's in the application information as well, we have a different need, I suppose, where you're applying to us for a specific show. And if you have, a lot of the artists haven't made the work yet, so the question is always, what do we put in? And if you can put a mix of the work you want to show and a mix of your previous, if you've got 10 images, 5 of each, or 3 of whatever, then that's giving us a sense of who you are as an artist and also what you want to put in our gallery. If you haven't made the work, just give us images that you think clearly articulate your ideas, so are close to what your ideas are. Because we're kind of looking for maybe more specifics, where these guys might be looking more about you as an overall artist. You, of course.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
I think we would also ask the question why you would want to exhibit the same works again. Maybe the question might not be so relevant to us, but we always ask when we're doing our application rounds, if you've exhibited the work, what are you as an artist getting out of re-exhibiting the same show? So often that's something that we really think about because we think, well, as an artist run space, it's about taking on the challenge of the show and then trying to develop new work. But for the commercial purposes, it's probably if it's works that haven't sold, or they could work in an emerging artist group show, then that's really good. So it just depends on your audience.
I think too, if you are, one rule we have is that if you're giving us an application, and I'm assuming, was your question more about showing the same up or just having the same?
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of a bit of both, like whether you sort of reinvent something from old shows, or whether you're showing that as a new thing that you want to apply for because it didn't.
So that depends on where it's going, but for someone like C3, if you've shown that work in interstate in that year, that's okay. If you've shown it in Melbourne, say in that year, and you want to show it us, we'd probably say no, because what are you gaining? I suppose, and what are we gaining? Because we're getting something out of it as well as curatorial practice. And so it's always good to. If you're going to make art for your life, there's going to be hundreds of shows. So I think be strategic about that.
Is there any other questions?
I have a question just in regards to your opinion with art prizes and art awards and how much do you pursue them? Is it worth it? Is it something to look at on people's CVs?
Yeah, I do, definitely.
Yeah, we do, absolutely. And it's a hard one because we say to even our artists, you've just got to keep applying. And eventually your names get on their radars and then it pops up. But I'd say absolutely, that's a good to see these from around.
I'd say as a practicing artist, I usually do like 2 a year, or maybe I stopped for a while because it was getting expensive and free in the state. But it's good because what you're really doing is getting your work in front of curators. So I don't really enter prizes to win them. I enter prizes getting to be exposure.
Yeah.
Because I know, like I was in the Darwin Art Prize recently, and Charlotte Day was curating that, and I was like, well, this is a good opportunity to show work to Charlotte Day. So don't worry about the prize if you win it.
Your work is out there on that radar.
And I know commercial galleries will be looking at prizes and will be looking at your CV in terms of prizes, because there is, I suppose, that thing about your work getting out there. And You know, I mean, I've had some commercial representation before, and those relationships took me a long time to develop, and it wasn't like, you know, some people are lucky. Some art students come out and they're like, people go, "You're amazing," and you know, there's people, you know, it's like superstars, and then, but that's like one in a thousand, you know, and the rest of us have to just kind of hod away at strategically exposing, making relationships. I mean, I would go, if you're interested in showing it, Scott's coming, I'd go to at least 5 or 6 openings a year and introduce yourself, even if he's not interested in your work, at least there's a personal relationship you can develop, and you might tell that the person's really nice, so-and-so might like this work, because a lot of it's about word of mouth.
Yeah.
So I think personal approaches, don't be afraid, be confident in your work, and you know, don't stalk people, because that's, you know, awkward for everyone. But you've got to listen to what people are saying, listen to the cues. Like, if you say, "Oh, look, taking my work," and they're like, "All right, thanks, okay, all right, see ya," then I wouldn't really go back. Yeah. So you've got to really kind of be a bit savvy about yourself. And there's plenty of different ways to do it.
But I think on that point as well that art prizes and grants are really good for your practice in terms of creating a sustainable practice in a non-commercial setting if you wanted to have works that you were making that weren't necessarily for sale. So that was a topic we were going to bring up as well. It's a really good way to get your name out there, to be in front of curators, but also maybe a way of subsidising your practice, which is really good. And there are hundreds of prizes, they're everywhere, you know, and it's really boring, but you maybe need to spend an afternoon researching some, and then just like got a little note of which ones maybe are open, and you know, start that as just a part of your practice, so that it's you know, evolving, and it might be something that will lead to future things. Because heaps of people, it's good monetary sometimes, acquisitive, all those things are really great for your practice in a commercial or a non-commercial setting. So,
and you know, they are like you look at art prizes and you'll see a range of artists, from really highly conceptual artists to very kind of, you know, more, I suppose, object related and more commercial aspect of it. They're all there, they're all doing it. So don't think, oh, you know, I don't make paintings, so I can't do that. I mean, there's plenty of contemporary art prizes that are really important. And it is, I think, if you look at a lot of what you're really trying to do is wave a flag in the sea of artists and get someone to notice you. So things like the art prizes are really good. Showing at Artron spaces.
Yeah, because you might not pick up a gallery, but you may pick up a very, very important patron that will want to foster you, and there's some very, very generous people out there. And you know, 2 of my artists really came to me, one through Peter Fay, who was just this fella's champion for a very, very long time. And you know, got him into Canberra, got him into many institutions. And you know, without that patronage, it just wouldn't have happened for this guy. You know, and they would have met at an opening, as you were saying. You know, definitely go to openings, and even if it's, you know, you come to my opening, it's not that you may meet someone. I mean, they're a hub. You know, gallery openings are a hub, and you know, maybe a patron. You know, many things can happen. There's no set way to get to that next.
Because, you know, I mean, there's a lot of talented artists in Melbourne. You can't service them. I mean, by saying you can't service them all is not a depressing thing. It's like you've got to, you know, look at different ways, or just be active about how you approach your practice in your career.
and there's some really great, it's also an interesting thing to note that some councils are changing the way that they activate arts precincts, because the City of Yarra for the first time has opened funding for individual artists. So that's massive. You can apply.
Well, that's for the 3-year.
For the 3-year funding.
Yeah,
which is really great. So things are changing also in terms of your empowerment as an individual artist. You know, with or without commercial representation, with or without shows, you can get maybe funding other ways, and you can approach your practice that way. So those things are really good to keep in mind. Things are changing in the way. This is the first time the City of Yarra has done something like this, and they're very proud to be supporting local artists making local work in the City of Yarra. So I think it's something that everyone should keep their eye on, the way that they can support their practice.
Up to $10,000 per year for 3 years as an individual artist. Keep in mind that they'll only approve 6 or 7 projects.
What's the web address for that?
Yarra
City of Yarra.
Yarra. There's They have the CEO Arts portal, which is really good.
Yeah.
Just ring Brona
Brona.
Keenan is amazing. She's lovely.
Yeah.
And I think it's, sorry, I want to talk. One thing, that's a really good point. Councils are really, like art prizes, councils, like you should, and then there's nothing in it for them, like, you know, like I'm in Darabin now, and Yarra, and Burundara, they all have really good arts offices and small little projects, and project spaces and curators. And they've got small, special project grants at Yarra. You can apply any time of year for $1,000, as long as you either work or live in Yarra or you're showing you work in Yarra, or there's some connection like that. And then you get back when you're on their radar. So, you know, all those little things really add up.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of the expectations you really need to manage, rather than saying what is a commercial work of art. You should be saying, why do I want to make art? And if you're really, you know, passionate about why you're making these arts and your art, and I don't know, actually that's it, I'm not going down that road. But it's you know, the reasons you make it should be the most important things to you, I think, as an artist.
And for a gallery, it has to have a mix. We represent still art. Now that's really a financial disaster. And it's such an important artist, a worldwide artist, that we'd get probably 3 inquiries for, you know, to borrow works of art or reproduce images. I mean, the gallery needs it just like that. But it's not a commercial. It's not a commercial situation.
We have some artists that do both really well. They want to live off their art practice, and so they can't always do conceptual work all the time. So they have to balance sort of a bridge between both. And they might do shows with us that are a cross between the two. Like I said before, they might do an incredible installation that is really propelling their practice, but then have works that they know will cover their framing costs. And then they'll apply to a regional gallery and put in a totally just installation show and have that show and give us new works for our stockroom. So it's taken a bit of practice. I think we've got a few artists that do that now. And they say, yeah, we want to do this and we need to balance that one, and they do it really well. And I think it's the opportunity of diversity of spaces. So you can be in a commercial gallery while still exhibiting in RS, for instance, or regional galleries and things like that. And I think that's really fun, and they're just so much more vibrant because of it. It's a really nice balance.
I mean, I think some of it is probably about 10% of it that's trend-based as well, in terms of what people are interested in buying. I mean, you know, you would typically think the video art is something that's really saleable, but also Tim Olsen sold 5 video works for almost 50 grand a pop, you know, at an art fair, and those things are selling too. So in some respects you can say that it's things that you can understand as saleable, like paintings, but then on the other hand it also depends on what people are feeling like is, you know, what they're in the mood for. It's very sort of a subjective thing as well. So the galleries do their...
I think the bottom line really is a saleable work is usually an artist who has talent and the work's great.
Yeah.
And you know, that's undeniable. So you can't really create that.
Yeah. So any last questions for anyone?
Got a quick one. Just it might be a more commercial sort of question, but what's your personal opinion about exhibiting interstate? Is it worthwhile?
And then it can just be as simple as that your $1,000 City of Yarra grant contributes to your artist fees at 7th, for example. Then you have a show and document it really well, and then you've got something to show for your next. And these things can roll over, but it doesn't have to be as, you know, financially hard if you're looking for other avenues to you know, support your practice as well. So.
And it also hones your CV skills.
CV skills, yeah,
By
which is good.
The more applications you put in, it gets believe me.
Yeah.
City of Melbourne have a good one too, actually. Theirs close on the 14th of June. And they're the same. They've got individual artist grants. They've got a new lot of residencies where they're trying to activate old buildings that are in the CBD that aren't being used. So I know the City of Melbourne arts grants. So they're really great for that kind of thing, in that they've got quite a broad range of where you might go, oh, maybe I will tackle that one project that I've always wanted to do, or just get funding to put on a body of work at, you know, the Dirty Dozen, or at Flinders Street Station or something like that. So yeah, they are great, and they really support it. You just call up and make an appointment, and it's really easy.
Yeah, they're there to be a support mechanism. So any other questions?
How important is social media, like Instagram?
It's huge. It's
Yeah.
become huge, but it's there's so many people that say they want a gallery and they come and see you, and you think, well, why? You're selling so much work on. You've just got to work out if that's your thing. Like, who's the girl that draws CJ?
Oh, CJ Hendry.
Who had a show up there? She doesn't need a gallery.
No, she's got a manager or a deal or something, doesn't she? But, yeah.
But look, it has changed, and it's taken a huge chunk out of the galleries, that emerging artist. So many people are running around thinking they're onto something on Instagram, and they'll spend, up to 10,000 on an image on a phone. So that is a huge, for better or worse, it's a huge part of that lower market, a huge part. But I think it's very important to have a very chic, if you're on Instagram, not necessarily to still have a very chic presence, which is like a CV, a visual CV. It's very
and people, FOMO is huge. I mean, people, if you're getting like 20,000 likes on your artwork, people are going to, that artist is hot, we're going to, and it's really hard to get a lot of likes. I mean, you have to work, social media's not easy. I mean, we put huge amounts of effort into it, and you might only get a few points of engagement. I shouldn't say likes, because it's about engaging with your audience. But artists, I think Instagram particularly is a really savvy spot for artists, because you can be really strategic and it's free and there's a massive feel out there of people who are going to look at it. But you just don't put your breakfast on all the time when your dog licking something. You kind of, it is, if you're going to use it as an art tool, then you need to think about that as a professional tool. But I know people, there's artists out there who have massive followings, and it's just because they put nice images on their thing, and people, that's a nice image, I like that. That's all it takes.
We find it huge for, we've found it really good for FLG in a few ways. First, it bridges the gap between us and our audience. So a lot of people that thought, it's a bricks and mortar gallery, is suddenly so much more accessible and people can engage and comment, and that's really great. The same thing, people comment on works and go, oh my goodness, I love it, how much is that? And something on that. Also, to people that have come and visited and then repost, you see that and go, oh, who's that? And they might be a great artist, and oh, their work is really amazing. And so we follow them, and even though it's it could be either a short game or a long game, but it's a really lovely community to, I think, nourish, and a really good platform to take advantage of for all of those reasons.
But just, be cautious of the commerciality aspect, because people get really turned off by it too.
Yeah.
You start saying, hey, this
is
for
for sale now. Oh, yeah, no, exactly that. People love the process too. Like, we even encourage our artists to say, do a photo of you with your cat painting, and we find that kind of level of engagement is really nice, as opposed to
you've got a cat, you should go right, I think.
Having said that, what is your opinion on artists? I know for us, we would never look at an Instagram or a Facebook in terms of our application process. Is that something that you would look at in terms of choosing an artist that could join your stable, or it's not? So it's a bit of a push and
It
pull.
doesn't matter how you come across it, really. If I see something that I think has legs, I'll chase it.
Yeah.
It's a great hunting ground. And I know there's some dealers that won't actually be online themselves, but I know they're trawling through. And they're trawling through all your followers, and they're trawling through your artists, and there are a lot of people spending a lot of
I think
time.
it's great image of dark things.
No, it's great. Look, it is a great tool, but in moderation, keep it very. If you're using it as an artist to display your life's work, keep it very chic, keep it very minimal, keep it very savvy.
It is just a modern day extension of wording art.
Yeah.
So any other questions?
I've got a quick question about applications again, sorry. Just about indicative work. If you're, say, a photo media artist and you're working mainly with images, but you want to branch out to something like video work, how do you show something like that on as an indicative work if you haven't produced it yet?
It's actually a hard one when you come across that in applications quite a bit, because, and I think whether it's video or sculpture or whatever, I mean, what you're trying to say to us really, in the reality is some images and some words that prove that we can make this work. And so you're trying to give us evidence that you can actually complete the work as what your artist statement and your intention statement is. So if you're saying, oh look, I'm a photo media artist, but I'm going to make all this, and I don't mean to use that in a negative way, but it's like, if I'm going to make this video work, we want to see video work, unfortunately. So, but for you, really, you probably shouldn't be showing work out in that realm unless you've kind of worked on it a bit, or you kind of worked it through, because with any artwork, you should really have had, a year in the studio with the work before you put it out in public anyway. So if you want to get into video, I would do the video first and spend the time and put it in next year's application, really, because if you're giving us, you're saying, oh, we're going to do a video show at C3, and then, well, where's the video? You're not going to get it. Even though we might say, hey, I had a photo media show, we might work. But if you can't give us evidence of it, it's hard for us to make a
Excuse me,
decision.
like that gentleman said over there, to use the previous body of work to explain.
Yeah,
or
I think
to
it's-
flag.
I think the difference is you're going from one genre and one practice to another. So if you're showing you're a painter and you want to get into sculpture, you've never done a sculpture before, I think you want to probably do a few tests before you. So it's the same with video, I think, because what this gentleman was saying is that it's about the work. And maybe but he didn't differentiate between whether it was two different genres or two different practices. I think it's hard if you're kind of jumping from one world to another. You need to be able to, I would say, test it out first.
Yeah.
There's plenty of time.
So any questions? Don't be shy. No? I'll check if there's any more online. So we had, we've covered that. How to invite galleries/curators or important people that you see for your practice to your shows to view your work and come to the studio. We've sort of covered this in terms of an etiquette, I suppose, in terms of an etiquette, I would say, that for people approaching people that they find important, so it's politeness. Did you have any other things to add about that? About curators?
Well, I know as an artist when I have a show, if I'm interested in someone wanting to see my work, I usually send them an email with a PDF. PDFs are really good, so make sure they're under 5 meg or something, otherwise you crash your person's mailbox and get funky. But, I might send a PDF with a very nice, like an application with it, much more streamlined, with 4 images and text. And then you send it to the artist saying, look, I'm having an exhibition, I'd love you to come. And then in the second week or the third week, and then we might send a gentle reminder, but that would be about it. If they don't come, then they're not going to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the same with us. Well, we kind of approach from all different angles in that I really love it when people do drop in an invite to their show, especially if it's, if it's somewhere in the CBD. I certainly try to go to all those shows. It's really refreshing for us to go and see other work in different spaces, and you always do end up remembering those names. For us, with our represented artists, we still do it. So we'll, call the NGV, we'll call these curators, we'll call these people to try and access from that point as well. So even we're doing it. And after a while, similar to what John said before and Scott about meeting people at openings, it's the same thing when by the time you get an email or a handwritten letter or something, you go, oh, this person's actually really quite lovely, we'll go along to that show. And I think it's a slow sort of process building that relationship.
Because you don't have to be like a player. I think when I was young, I was like, oh God, do I have to actually try to toss her and, it's like up to these people. It's like, no, because people are good. And they're like other nice people. And you don't have to, you just need to be considerate, and as Scott said, politeness is a really key thing. But gallerists and curators are very normal people, and they like to meet other people. So you don't, you've got to be confident in me and just say, hi, I'm an artist. And we'll go, great. Show us that, because our job is to meet artists. You shouldn't be afraid, but don't think of it as this big thing where you have to play the game. It's not. People, I see it all the time, people come up to me because they might want to put an application in, and I know the person's talking to me because they're not going to talk to me, they want the opportunity, and that's okay, but it's sort of sad when you're not getting that personal honesty. You can't, okay, I would have rather just talked about this show that we're in all.
It's very true, because if we're mainly painting gallery, but if a painter turns up and they've written a few notes, you must say, well, how's your work going? Who have you tried? You're getting any traction there? Just keep it friendly.
Because some gallery dealers might not like your work or might not find it appropriate, but they'll still remember you and think about you for other opportunities.
Mm.
Because really the community is a community.
Yeah.
And people are, like, you know, we had that meeting, we were talking about different galleries and art on spaces, and we talked about other artists. People talk, it's a community, you've got to remember that. So, you know, be confident in your practice.
Yeah. And there's easy ways of making it accessible for people, like we were saying, if you embed a PDF image into an email and so it pops up and there's a bit of colour, there's a bit of like energy about your email instead of, you know, hi, can you please, and you have to open the attachment and all that kind of thing. It's those little things just mean that if there's an immediate, you know, response to opening your email, where we can engage with it quickly and we'll be like, great, that's amazing, because you know, we look at hundreds of these sorts of things all the time, so a little point of difference. Just take the time to think, how would you open the email if you had to, you know, open the attachment and maybe the thing was blurry, which sometimes it is, you know, those kinds of things that make it a lot less harder for us to engage. So you can often embed the PDF into your email or have an image in the email, and those kind of things will grab our attention and you
An
know.
image in an email is much better than a life story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to actually see that and go, wow, that's fantastic, as opposed to
I wouldn't mind your
your full
handwritten
paragraphs.
letter every so often.
Oh yeah.
I got a letter from an artist in London, and I was like, oh, it's just so old school, it's really nice, and I kept that there. But I was going to say, yeah, I think, sorry.
That's, is there any last questions? Oh yeah,
Just one more question.
that's okay.
So I'm just wondering in terms of etiquette of applying for spaces, because you might be thinking, okay, well I've got this body of work and I want to apply for a space or two, but then like how do people feel about like if I got accepted to a place and then suddenly another place, is like, do you feel like it's something that you should clear with one application first and then move on to, like, is that something frowned upon as well if you have to then cancel?
Do you mean if you get, like, say, if you apply, we'll just
Yeah, like
before
because
with
you
that
have to.
Yeah, we just talk about, it happens all the time with
yeah.
artist run spaces. We
Yeah.
talked about this in our last panel. We sort of all know each other, so we know, you know, if we get all each other's emails, we're usually just talking. So a lot of the time, artists will apply for the same show for multiple artist run spaces, for example. And if you get the show and you show in September with one and in December in the other, you need to do different work. And we'll usually know, or if you need to probably raise that, because you also need to, it'd be good for you to be doing different work. So there's an example of an artist at C3 that proposed that work that is currently showing there, and she'll be showing with us, and she's making different work. So
And that was just a sheer chance of scheduling. So,
Yeah.
like, we had a spot that was appropriate for it, so we put it in this show. And then, you know, it's like, oh, she's got the same show. So, I mean, you know, if you're going to, like, we all do it. We all put one application out to all the different groups, some of us do anyway. And if you get the thing, then you've doubled your opportunities. And so you should really look at it in a savvy way and go, okay, well, I'm going to make that show, and then I'm going to try and negotiate the second show for further dates, so you've got time to make it work. And take that opportunity.
yeah.
It's great.
Rather than just saying like,
Yeah.
Oh, it just depends on your circumstance, but
Yeah, all
Yeah.
things are different.
all
But I
things.
think if you get a show, say, at one of our galleries, and then suddenly a commercial gallery offers you a full show of that work, but I think as long as you do it in a professional manner, like that happens to us. We get, you know, young graduates, and they say, oh, look, I've actually been picked up. But they'll come to us with at least 3 months' notice, and not do it in writing, or just do it in a nice way and say, hey, look, sorry, really hate to say, but we've got this show. And for us, it's great for you because it's a good opportunity. So we're happy for you.
We do that
Just
too
do
from
it,
a professional perspective too, with the exact same thing. We might have an artist and go, oh my goodness, we love you, we'll sign you on. And they say, well, actually, we've committed to this and this. And we'll go, okay, great, you know, acknowledge that commitment. But then you come on board with us when new works and we manage it that way. So we'll always work out what's best for the artist and try to, work out
And the good thing with you guys, I know that you program at least a year to 2 years in advance, so you've got usually your scope, whereas we're going about 6 months in advance. So you know those sorts of things you can work with in terms of, you know, that if you snapped up by a commercial gallery, then you won't have a show probably for a year or so. So at least.
Yeah.
So yeah.
thank you.
That's okay. Yeah.
Can I ask, what makes artwork commercial in your point of view? You know, what is the
It's a really good question, and it's so subjective.
Look, for me, and essentially we're a painting gallery that likes the drawing and some sculpture from a Sotheby's background, and from starting with Giles then Sotheby's, you just get a feel. I can't answer your question. It's a feel thing. It's a sense of commercial reality. It's a very hard thing to answer.
It's similar to from what Scott said before, is like galleries have their client base, and yes, of course, you're trying to grow that all the time, but you do know the aesthetics and the values of your client base, and then you kind of work in tandem with that to reflect your stable. So you think about how either the artist you're inviting in, or if a represented artist is changing direction, you know, how it can benefit their artistic growth while also being still able to, it might challenge the client base, but still have some kind of resonance with them as well. But that doesn't give you really dot points. It's just, again, with Scott, it's that kind of being intuitive.
I won't say who the artist was, a very elegant old boy, used to show at the gallery, and then his wife became very ill. He became very consumed with what was happening on Manus Island, and he gave me this body of work that was, you know, basically huts on Manus Island. It looked like Auschwitz. It really was very, very grim. Now, the commercial reality was those pictures weren't going to be bought, but he judged the gallery on the performance of the sale of those paintings. I was certainly happy to hang them because they were very, very fine paintings, but they were never ever going to sell. I wasn't angry that they didn't sell, but he was. And so, you know if you're going to paint a painting of, you know, a man, you know, rotting someone, you know, that's going to be difficult. James Macon had a show by Luke Scaberus of all these severed pigs' heads on the table, and Luke left James and said, oh, you know, he couldn't sell them. I said, you know, I couldn't sell them either. Halfway clients are Jewish, they're not going to buy a severed, you know, I mean, you've got to, they're not, and you've got to have, you know, you've got to be realistic. You know, not everyone has a very broad, you know, imagination when it comes to art. A lot of people just want beauty. I'm not saying my gallery is just about that, but you know, there are commercial realities.
I think it's almost like saying what is art or what is contemporary art, because there's no true definition. I mean, as an artist, I would say to you, you need to really think about why you're making art. You know, so it's kind of the expectations you really need to manage, rather than saying what is a commercial work of art. You should be saying, why do I want to make art? And if you're really, you know, passionate about why you're making these arts and your art, and I don't know, actually I'm not going down that road. But it's you know, the reasons you make it should be the most important things to you, I think, as an artist.
And for a gallery, it has to have a mix. We represent still art. Now that's really a financial disaster. It is such an important artist, a worldwide artist, and we get probably 3 inquiries for, you know, to borrow works of art or reproduce images. I mean, the gallery needs it just like that. But it's not a commercial. It's not a commercial situation.
We have some artists that do both really well. They want to live off their art practice, and so they can't always do conceptual work all the time. So they have to balance sort of a bridge between both. And they might do shows with us that are a cross between the two. Like I said before, they might do an incredible installation that is really propelling their practice, but then have works that they know will cover their framing costs. And then they'll apply to a regional gallery and put in a totally just installation show and have that show and give us new works for our stockroom. So it's taken a bit of practice. I think we've got a few artists that do that now. And they say, yeah, we want to do this and we need to balance that line, and they do it really well. And I think it's the opportunity of diversity of spaces. So you can be in a commercial gallery while still exhibiting in RSV instance or regional galleries and things like that. And I think that's really fun, and they are just so much more vibrant because of it. It's a really nice balance.
I mean, I think some of it is probably about 10% of it's trend-based as well, in terms of what people are interested in buying. I mean, you know, you would typically think the video art is something that's really saleable, but also Tim Olsen sold Fly Video works for almost 50 grand a pop, you know, at an art fair, and those things are selling too. So in some respects, you can say that it's things that you can understand as saleable, like paintings, but then on the other hand, it also depends on what people are feeling like is, you know, what they're in the mood for. It's very sort of a subjective thing as well. So the galleries do their...
I think the bottom line really is a saleable work is usually an artist who has talent and the work's great.
Yeah.
And you know, that's undeniable, so you can't really create that.
Yeah.
So any last questions for anyone?
Very quick one. Just it might be a more commercial sort of question, but what's your personal opinion about exhibiting interstate? Is it worthwhile?
Definitely interstate. You know, we have connections with all sorts of galleries interstate. You know, there are, from a commercial perspective, you know, our artists have galleries, you know, 2 galleries in Australia in different states. But just in terms of different shows as well, it's nice seeing that an artist has put themselves out there and has made that contact with Newcastle and gone and had a show there. I think it's fantastic.
It depends on how prolific, you know, how much work can be made and spread around. Like I represent one fellow, Ron Francis, who lived in a very remote part of Adelaide, now lives in a very remote part of Hobart, and it would probably take him 6 to 8 weeks to make a painting, and he just can't have 2 galleries. It's just totally unviable. But that our relationship works in that respect. But if he could make it could be big enough.
Because I suppose the discussion centres around your profile, how you're rating your profile, presenting your profile, and showing around, you know, having a CV with I showed in Sydney and Adelaide and whatever, it's raising your profile.
Yeah.
So if you can cope with, I think Scott's really right, like don't spread yourself with watering yourself down so you're not sending a good message. So be strategic and think. It's always about thinking about what you're capable of and can you do it and a good thing. Because I mean, you know, showing interstate is a great thing, really.
But yeah, you don't want to compromise.
Yeah.
You don't want to compromise anything that you're doing.
Apart from the costs of obviously getting artwork.
Yeah.
Make everything in a tube, so you just put it into a tube and put it on your arm and play. And I think after my show last year at Strange Natal, which was a great thing to do, this year I spent all thinking about how I can make a cheap show. And you know, I know Nathan Gray did it, and it was fantastic for his career, where he was making heaps and heaps of work, and then he just like, oh, I'm sick of this, you know, it's costing thousands of dollars, and so he made a commitment to make works that only cost $10 each, and he's, you know, that was wildly successful.
I mean, it's all, I mean, with the commercial model, it's supply and demand. This is how any of these things work. Sometimes it's better to pull yourself back and you make less better work than lots and lots of shows, lots of everything everywhere, because the quality will always, you know, not be as good. And if you're nailing one show every a year or every 2 years, the works, you know, then people are excited about that. And you're also, as an independent artist, if you haven't got representation, able to maintain your client base better, because you're not spamming them with shows all the time. You're like, oh, another show. And they will want to come back for new work. And I'm sure that that's the same with clients and commercial galleries too. So keeping a consistency but having a high quality, not trying to do everything is probably also
That is trying to be careful. You don't want to have a show in Melbourne and then commit to Sydney and leave Melbourne high and dry with all these clients that loved your work and now won't see you again for 2 years. And so balancing that between making sure that, you know, you are really nurturing the people that do love your work and not trying to cover yourself, spread yourself too thin.
And I think if you're showing in 2 states, you really want both gallerists or dealers to be very cohesive about the vision that you have and with each other, and especially pricing. I've seen so many artists just breaking through and the pricing's just been completely fucked up because someone, you know, there just hasn't been, it's not cohesive. Like you might have had a great success in Melbourne and then Sydney, I don't know what it is, but little paintings in Sydney, they price at a very, very high level. And so I've had 1 or 2 artists, you know, where a certain size, there's just no point even showing.
Because once you go forward, it's hard to go back.
Go back, yeah.
Although that's a very funny thing too. People always say that, and sort of Rob Cook sat me down one night and he said, well, oil goes up and down, gold goes up and down. But in the art world, we say that, you know, if a painting is 30, it can't then be 20. And it is very hard to lower the...
Which is silly because really it should, you know, I think what happens with that is
But it has to be
people tie
strategic,
value
though.
people tie value of an artwork with reputation. So once your value starts going down,
Down,
oh,
like,
they've
what's
lost
going
it.
on?
you know.
And that person who did buy the work at 30 grand is going, well, what have I bought? You know, would I invest in
David
it?
Cromley is a good example of it because he was selling his work for. I have to say, I'm not very interested in his practice, but I know he was selling his work at a very high level to investors and super funds and all that, and then he started selling on the side. Didn't he?
Yeah.
And his gallery went, can't do that. And his paintings are like worth virtually nothing now.
Yeah.
So you've got to be. I think it's what I'm saying. I know I'm repeating myself, but just be considered at everything you do. And just think about it logically.
Yeah, smaller increments are better, much better. But if you're in two places, really, you want those two people to get their heads together.
There actually aren't
Share.
many artists that can manage that,
No.
that are represented commercially. A lot of them can't handle 2 galleries just because of that reason. It's just such a big workload. I think as an unrepresented artist, it's really good to have the diversity on your CV and show that you're showing at different spaces. But in regards to expectation of workload, it is really hard for
If you're starting out, I would totally suggest showing at all the artificial spaces because that's a way to raise your profile and you're meeting the community and you're building your practice. And I think when I left RMIT Sculpture, the equip said to me you're going to have 4 shows a year, and I thought that was an extraordinary amount. But what he meant was 1 solo and maybe try and be in 3 group shows, and that's a pretty good number. That might be a bit too much for some artists, or it might be perfect for others. There's no rules. But you really should be just continuously rolling along, ticking away, making work, trying to get out to. Because the more, like if you show it, try and get, say, start small and go to some of the galleries that maybe a bit more open access. You have a show, you get great images, then you go to another, and you just keep building up. You get the Mona before you're
Well, if anyone doesn't have any last questions, yeah.
I'm quite curious as to how much the commercial spaces are interacting with artist-run spaces. So aside from when you've got a personal recommendation or invitation, how often are you stopping in on Kings and 7th and West Space and that sort of thing?
It's only word of mouth, the grapevine and sort of jumping drums to get going. Again, my gallery, there's 3 of us. I think, there might be 18, 20 artists. Multiply that with clients, there's only so much you can do. Of course, you're on, as a gallery, you're on every mailing list. Things are coming at you left, right and centre. But again, it might be the artist that comes in that's always polite, that you're not interested in showing, but you care about and you want to find a situation. Like, oh my God, I've just been to MIT, you've got to check this. It's all about community. And, we are who we are. We can't be everything to everybody. And, we do cover quite a bit, but again, through word of mouth, really, social media.
We're the same. It kind of really sucks sometimes that we have to be in the gallery and open when the cover's mostly when Ari's open. So it's literally lunch breaks where we're running to whatever we can cover.
Yeah.
And the rest is coming through email. So we'll go, oh, that show looks interesting, the opening's then, and then we might be able to go. And it is good because it is a community and we do try to do that. And specifically when artists do come forward and go, oh yeah, we've got this show at TTV and we'll do that and try to make an effort to go to that as well. So there is a bit of...
Which is also why your web presence is good.
Yes.
Because I'm chained to the desk for most of for most of the week at C3, so I can't get out. So I miss all these great shows. So if you can take good photos of them, then there's the least chance that all those people get to see the shows as well. But I think one of the thing I was going to say before is most art galleries or most organisations are under-resourced. So if you are sending emails and not getting emails back, you tend to remind yourself because sometimes you just just remember the emails I haven't responded to for a few weeks. And that happens. It's not because people don't respond to you. So just be patient.
Yeah, I think it's just an under-resourced thing. I think all of us are working on a shoestring and we try our best, but there's always so many shows and so many things. Everyone tries to get to everything, but it's not always possible. So, yeah.
But it's certainly great. We love shows at Ari's, especially too, because for us, where we might not be able to shows that are of that particular nature, to go and see them in a space, you just go, wow, it's such good ideas.
Studio open days are terrific.
Yes, yeah, the little collections. There was one in Brunswick not long ago, a studio opened up and they had a little Brunswick walk, and that was fantastic. Yeah.
And that's a good idea to with the question about connecting with gallerists. Is if you are in a studio and you have, or if you've got groups of people that you have similar agendas, you can do studio days, and then like we might look at an invitation to come and see a group of artists. Even if it's in a pop-up spot or something like that, it's probably more practical for us to go to that rather than to go to each individual studio. So pool your resources as well, and you don't have to collectivise so much, but maybe just get together and do different things. I have days where you might say, look, we've booked out an empty space, and there's a place Nigel Knott's doing. There's a gallery in Fitzroy Street that you can hire and work with. And they're great spaces because it's a nice clean space. You can hire for a week, have a show, invite all your gallery directors down, and a few of them might turn up.
That one's called Second Space, if
Yeah.
anyone's interested.
Yeah.
Cool.
And gallerists use it as well.
Second space.
Second Space.
The open studios are great. Paradise Hills does really good ones, so you can just go and wander through, and that's really great. I mean, I know dealers and commercial gallerists that have gone down there who I've talked to, been through those studios. People definitely go. It's just a matter of collecting some energy around it and just doing it. Sometimes it's just as simple as that,
Sometimes it's a matter of liking, Flinders Lane Gallery on Instagram, and then they all might see the odd photo, then you invite them to something, and then you pop at the opening 3 months later, and it's those little tiny connections. People notice them, and I think that's it's a social way of doing it, so it's kind of easy.
Yeah. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I've got a question for Scott. How long you will watch someone before you make the approach if you come across an artist? Or both the commercial ones?
It can be 10 years. It can be 10 years. It's up to say.
You're lurking in the background there and the artist doesn't watch.
Watching, always watching. It's an artist that I was corresponding with for about sort of just on and off. This might answer the question, but sort of probably 2 years, and she was showing at a design shop in High Street, but she's better than that, and sort of saying, oh, we want more, we want whatever, and which must be sort of numbing for her, and so had this opportunity. Poor thing had a meltdown. She's a single mum because they'd sold some pictures, and of course money was paramount to get in, and so this opportunity offered and this group show didn't happen, and I was very annoyed because she basically said, I have to break out of this and I really need to get to that next stage. So then somehow we found each other again and went to her studio a few hours out of Melbourne, taken 2 pictures, sold one, I think, in a day, more or less. And but I said, if we do this for 2 years, I have to have you exclusively, because I can't have it ruined before it starts. And yes. And then she called me and she said, oh my God, Tim Olsen's following me on Instagram. Shall I send him some images? No, not yet. I know Timmy. We'll play to it, because if she bombards him, I know what he's like. It'll be too hard. He'll lose the fun of the chase.
Yeah.
It's a game too. It is a game. But the deal is, I know you don't want to hear, but it is, because one dealer wants to get there before the other dealer and wants to herald what they've discovered or promote to their clients. When I'm trying to think, Sullivan's show, Karen Black, a beautiful artist that Tristan Koenig had for a long time. Oh my God, when she was unsigned, the Jungle Drums it was mayhem. Melbourne and Sydney trying to get hold of her. But if she'd actually approached all those galleries, they wouldn't have been as interested. So again, it's that gentle It's hard. I know
Or
it's hard.
some kind of desperation or something, like
Yeah.
approaching people.
But the whole Tim thing, I know Tim. You know, if she thinks, oh my God, I've got all this work, he'll just,
Okay, no.
yeah, he wants to discover it. So I said, no, we'll reel you in, and we will. You know,
For us, it's really hard. I think it's kind of maintaining that being selective because you do get bombarded with so much stuff. You want to say, actually, you know, I want to commit to this artist and do
it's
it.
taken 2 years for us to find one another and go, right, now let's go. Can't have dismantled before let's go.
Yeah.
You know, it's taken 2 years. Is that sort of
Yeah,
answer?
I was just curious. I was speaking to another gallerist and they said a similar thing. And just wondering if there's anyone lurking out there.
Yeah. Well, and all
You can
galleries,
hope.
I mean, all gallerists have favourite galleries. Mine isn't mine. I love Murray's gallery. I think he's got the most beautiful gallery in Melbourne. You know, so we're all sort of slightly competitive and have admiration for other gallerists and the way they do things as well. It's, you know, it's not, there's no manual, there's no, at the end of the day, you've got to find someone, whether it's a patron or a gallerist that champions you, that gets you, that you have a common vision with. That's not always monetary, you know, it certainly isn't in Stellar. But you've got to be very clear and concise and know where you want to go and what you want out of it. And you've got to tell the prospective gallerist that, because they think, well, hang on, I'm paying $95,000 in rent and outgoings and staff and blah blah blah, and you're going to have 5 shows of balloons or something. You've got to know. You've got to know.
For us, it's a real mix because we really love the show that we've got on now. We love our Emerging Artist show. For the reason in getting to ARIES, it gives us a chance to go around to grad shows. It gives us a chance to go through all those emails from unrepresented artists and go, all right, is there actually anything in here that we can work with? And by the time we filter that down, we've got 10 artists at the gallery at the moment. Often in that 10, you end up finding really lovely gems. And I think every year, for certainly as long as I've been in the gallery, we've signed 1 or 2 of those artists on and said, these are actually fantastic, and they might be at the start of their career or at a midpoint, but just have been unsigned. So there's that kind of element to it as well. And then the same as Scott, where there'll be an artist on your radar, and it might take a while, and then suddenly go, actually the time's kind of right now, and let's pounce and invite them in to do that. So it is a bit of both.
Scott, what's the main genre of the artwork you represent?
At Flinders Lane Gallery.
Yeah.
It's very diverse. We do have some beautiful realist painters, streetscapes and landscapes. We've got some really great abstractionists as well, some that are very, I guess, traditional abstraction, and then some that are using quite contemporary mediums. We've also got sculpture. And in the exploration shows the last few years, we've tried to show some form of video art. We don't represent any video art at the moment, but just to kind of diversify it. So it is really mixed. And that reflects client base and client interest, and being able to have works that are they're all at a very similar high quality, but very diverse in their content, I guess.
And you?
Mainly painting, figurative abstraction.
And as mainly painting too, actually.
Yeah, mainly painting.
And for C3, what's your main presentation day?
Well, we're contemporary art. We're non-profit contemporary art, so our agenda is more about. We don't actually have a genre. I mean, we have painting, we have sculpture, we have video, we have relational work, we have performance, sound, video. I think I had a show where I was in a 150-foot crane throwing rocks into the garden for an artist. I paid to do it. It was pretty good. That was OSW, it was an amazing collective. We don't have any genre, we're just interested in ideas. So what we're looking for is interesting, unique ideas that I suppose are dealing with the forefront of critical thinking in art. So, but we'll also show very traditional genre, like I suppose the media, like we'll show very traditional painting, but what the artists are working with might be quite cutting edge. So there's no rules about material and idea, it's the combination of the difference.
Anything else? Probably should wrap it up. It's almost It's almost like 8 o'clock. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to approach us after the panel. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.